because, Hendrina and I have been going into prisons, golly, for, I guess it's almost 8 years now. We've been going in regularly for about every week, just going in, meeting with men, talking about doing different studies, really digging deep within ourselves. And it's been a real privilege for us because we've really learned about ourselves at a much different level, and how we approach different peoples that we normally wouldn't encounter with, and just our outlook on life. It's been really healthy for us. On occasions, we'll have the students or the inmates read through a portion of the writings, and there's always a common theme, bing, 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 as we go around, that there's a struggle that you can see that's starting to well up inside of them when it gets close to their time to do their part. And what we see is a common theme, group after group after group, where they'll be reading, and that you can just hear the struggle. You can hear it in their voice, where they're just kind of going through the paragraph. The sentences will run on, where there's natural breaks in the paragraph. They'll just continue to roll right through it. Words that we don't normally use in everyday language, they'll pause on, and they'll stutter through, and often we'll say what we're seeing there, Andrina and I are seeing there, is really a statistic of that 60% of those that are incarcerated read at the third or fourth grade level. And that becomes very apparent when you're sitting in front of them doing readings. And so we just have to work through that. And it's the same here at Crossroads when we're looking at what's being written to us as we're going through the Bible lessons. I think about some of the words that we use when we're doing Bible study, and words that we typically aren't using in our everyday language. Nor do you see it in the newspaper or most readings of our books. I think about words such as backsliding. Now, backsliding, I looked it up. What does it mean? At least in the Webster's, it meant relapsing. That was one of the words given. Now, I know that every prisoner knows what relapsing means. Drug use is, drug-related issues in the prison are just throughout, and everybody knows somebody who's in some type of recovery group in prison. And so I think about the word prodigal. The only time I ever hear the actual word prodigal is when we're referring to the story of the prodigal son in the Bible. And so if we're using terms like that, some of these more what we'll call Christian terms, even salvation or sin, is how can we use them and use them to our advantage, and just as we're using some of these terms, say we're going over the prodigal son, well, explain what does prodigal mean, and use it and just expound on it, and use it as a teaching moment, not only for the student but for yourself, in an effort to grow. When I talk about the inmate reading at the third or fourth grade level, that has no bearing whatsoever on intelligence, I can tell you that. Some of these guys are the funniest, smartest guys I've ever met. They just got left behind so many years before. So I think one of the easiest and most meaningful ways to keep our letters fresh and current is just talk about ourselves. I know it's not something that we've talked about through the years here at Crossroads, but when someone tells just a little piece about themselves, what's going on in their lives, what's concerning them just for today, or what's been an ongoing challenge for them, what's causing joy in their life, If we could just incorporate that from the get-go in our lessons, it's a great starting piece. I'll tell you, I'll just, whatever. So Hendrina and I have traveled. Sometimes we are able to leave town, and so we have to take a week off of our groups at prison. And so we'll come back, and they're always so glad that we came back. And so they always want to hear about our trip, wherever it was, whether we went down south or they just want to hear it. So they want to hear about what we experienced. And what's interesting is they don't want to hear the bigger picture stuff. They want to hear the details. Because, I forget, that they're inside this fence every day, year after year after year, and I liken it to it's like it's gray all the time. It's just gray. They want to hear the details. What did the trees look like? What did the ocean look like? What did the lake look like? Specifically, what did you see driving down the road? I remember I made a comment about somewhere we went that just seemed like a whole big strip mall. And so I said, well, tell me about that. What does that look like? And so I just have to remember that, the prisoner just doesn't get to see those types of things. And they want to just hear about it. It's not life-changing for them, but they just are curious.